This is what you want. This is what you get. This is what you
You have located GeekFest Rants, the entertainment podcast for genre geeks like you.
Shall we play a game?
Covering the world of vintage and current film and television since 2010.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Featuring in-depth conversations on sci-fi, horror, fantasy, comics, toys, and conventions.
So say we all.
And now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show.
I just can't wait. I can't wait to see what they reveal.
I love it. You know, it's a celebration all around.
I've been prepping for this. I've been here in this line since 6 in the morning. I'm ready.
This is unbelievable to be here.
She saw the announcement. She said, "We have to go.
We're going, guys.
We're going.
We're going.
Looking forward to some epic lightsaber battles.
It's an environment filled with nothing but positivity. Best thing this weekend, everything was awesome. Everything was awesome.
If everyone's happy and we're all just celebrating it all together. It's so cool.
Star Wars Celebration is headed to Anaheim in 2020.
Hi everybody and welcome to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Barone, and today I have Kyle, my son, joining me, and we are going to discuss Star Wars Celebration 2020, an event that, as of now, it is still up in the air as to whether or not it will happen. One of our favorite, if not the favorite, convention that takes place every now and then. This time around, it's supposed to happen in Anaheim, California. However, because of the COVID situation, it might not. They've already canceled other major conventions. And today we're going to talk about what could have been expected, from this particular Star Wars convention. And if there are alternative ways to make it happen in a different manner, if they do end up canceling the actual convention. So let's get started with our show.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a special news bulletin direct via satellite from our on-the-spot task force.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Thank you, Bob.
It's Mort.
Mark, yes. I am Ted Baxter, and here is the news.
Okay, I'm joined here today by Kyle, my son Kyle. Say hi, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
We're going to talk about what's been happening here convention-wise due to the COVID-19 outbreak and how a lot of things are being canceled left and right, things that some of them are immediate things, some of them are things in the future. The biggest announcement we've gotten so far is San Diego Comic-Con, which obviously for genre purposes, it's one of the absolute giant events that happens every year where we get most of our genre-related news and toys and shows and TV shows and movies and stuff like that. I mean, we're going to be basically focusing mainly on Star Wars right now because this is a very important Star Wars year as far as I'm concerned. Not only, in terms of merchandising, as usual, whatever happens to be around is what they merchandise the most of. But because this is kind of like the second year that we're transitioning from a very heavy film schedule, let's say, which has led to somewhat of a backlash, I imagine, of the success of the films, specifically with Last Jedi, then Solo, and now Rise of Skywalker. And we've started to see the transition into television with Disney Plus and The Mandalorian, which is a complete, absolute hit. There's no arguing here that The Mandalorian has, as far as I'm concerned, has taken up the mantle of the Star Wars franchise. Not only from a successful I guess you could call it ratings or, viewership, but merchandising too. There's a lot of focus that's all of a sudden shifting now towards the Mandalorian. And we talked about in the past how they were a little behind the ball on merchandising on purpose because of the whole Yoda baby the controversy, if you want to call it, of why did they not have merchandise, and it was done on purpose so that there would be a surprise for the viewers of what this new character and merchandising would be all about. But now that the cat's out of the bag, they had plans already, and I think some of those plans included being able to see some really good merchandise right around now. But this whole COVID-19 thing has basically thrown a hand grenade into everybody's plans, not only just the merchandising side, but the production side, what's coming next, what's coming now. And in these conventions that we normally would see, now, this is a specific difficult year if you think about it, because not only would we have the usual yearly San Diego Comic-Con, but we were also going to have, or we are still technically, possibly, maybe not, going to have Celebration Anaheim. Last year, I think it was Chicago. This year is Anaheim again. They're going back to Anaheim. And right now, it is still questionable as to whether or not that will take place. Given all the social distancing guidelines, it seems pretty impossible for any convention-size event. Given the fact that also California has been saying that they are going to suspend just about everything, possibly through the end of the year.
Next year, too.
We might not see any real massive gatherings until next year, in California at least. I think any day now they're going to have to announce some kind of a cancellation and some kind of a refund strategy. San Diego Comic-Con has already been issuing or starting the process of issuing refunds, which, from what I've seen, you have to apply for a refund, then let you know if they can give you that refund. I don't see why they wouldn't, but there's apparently an option that if you want, or if you don't specifically ask for a refund, up until sometime in July, I think it is, or June or July, they will automatically credit you that ticket. That pass that you bought for 2020 will be automatically, renewed for 2021. Because, again, San Diego Comic-Con takes place every year in San Diego. It's just a matter of, figuring out the dates. So that's how San Diego is taking care of it. Celebration Anaheim is a whole other monster, and we're going to talk about that at the end. But let's talk about the type of information that we would have gotten, because this is a year, again, where you have multiple big events, or you had multiple big events. They kind of usually separate, they spread them out. So if there are any big announcements, they might give you a few during San Diego Comic-Con, and then a couple more, a couple months later at Celebration, which this particular celebration was at the end of August. Mm-hmm. So they kind of spread it out. Not only they do it for merchandising, Hasbro. They show you some figures over here, then they show you some other figures over there. They spread it out. We talked about this a bazillion times. Between toy shows and conventions and celebrations, they try to spread it out so that, it's like an ongoing thing that you're always looking forward to something happening. But because this year we would have been splitting all the information between two major events, there is none. So the question then becomes, how do they roll out information, or what kind of information were we even waiting for? So let's start breaking it down in terms of the major Star Wars announcements that we would have had this year. First off, the most important thing, as usual, as far as I'm concerned, is movies. And as far as I can tell, because they were shifting gears already to kind of step away from movies, let's do a little more Disney Plus television to let it breathe, let the movies breathe a little. Do you remember, Kyle, where were we with movies after this trilogy was over? What was still in the works?
Yeah, there was supposedly another trilogy that was being developed, and then there were apparently some solo projects still being developed, but it was that new trilogy was supposed to start in 2022.
Now, which trilogy is this? The Rian Johnson one or the Game of Thrones?
I think it was supposed to. Well, the slate was for the Game of Thrones people, but those
and that's
people
out
left.
the window.
Well, no, they still have movies slated for those.
But they left. Okay, so those movies are technically still in the pipeline.
Yes.
Okay, then what about Rian Johnson? Because up until a few months ago, he was still claiming that he was still in the works.
Yeah, there's still something going on there, it sounds like, but we have no clue of when or how or what. And
let me just reiterate, I am not a big fan of what he did with The Last Jedi. I am still a fan of his filmmaking because I love Looper, and I recently saw Knives Out and loved that movie too.
That was so good, yeah.
And I just cannot forgive him for The Last Jedi, but I do look forward to more work from him, maybe non-Star Wars work. You know, I would love to see more non-Star Wars work from him. Same thing with Gareth Edwards, who did a fantastic job as far as I'm concerned with Rogue One, and we never saw him again. It's like, what happened? He actually made something good.
I looked on IMDb and there's nothing. He's not even doing anything
I know.
at all.
Why aren't people like knocking at his door, begging him to do something, or television, or Disney Plus, anything?
Well,
I don't understand, but at least as far as Rian Johnson goes, you know, I'm not a Rian Johnson hater. I just don't like what he did with Last Jedi. But technically, there has been no announcement of him stepping away or him being told to step away.
Honestly, I think that Rian Johnson, if he had his own trilogy that was completely separate from everything else, I think he could make something good.
Yes, I agree with that. And I said that since the beginning. His biggest sin, as far as I'm concerned, is that he made the wrong Star Wars movie. He should have made a solo movie, not a trilogy that's attached to something that was already started. If he were to create his own thing, I think he could pull it off.
Yeah.
But is that it, as far as we know, of existing projects?
There's also somehow Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige are apparently working on something, some sort of like Star Wars movie, singular, but we haven't heard anything about that in a couple months either. But apparently he's working on something as a producer or something like that. But yeah,
and it's also suspected that a lot of the projects that they were shopping around initially or brainstorming initially that they wanted to turn into movie, like there was a period where they were talking about a Yoda movie. Oh my God, a Yoda movie or a Boba Fett movie. Well, guess what? I think those projects basically turned into Mandalorian.
Probably.
In a way, that's kind of what happened. Now, the other thing I could have swore I heard, and you correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm thinking of the wrong medium, but I thought there were some kind of a theatrical movie idea about the Knights of the Old Republic.
I mean, it's definitely something that's been tossed around. There's rumors that new trilogy will be something along those lines.
Yeah.
But right now, the only thing that's canon now that is going to be taking place, like in not necessarily that part of the past, but in the further past, is the new comics and books that they're releasing as part of Project Luminous, which is the High Republic era, which is like 400 years before Phantom Menace, I think it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Where like the Jedi are at their height and they're basically kind of like space cowboys basically, and they're like liberating towns and stuff.
But because it's comics, that's a whole other medium altogether. So I think that's about it for movies. So if Comic-Con or Celebration were still taking place, I don't think there's much that they could announce at this point having to do with anything in terms of a big hour-long panel on blah, blah, blah. No.
Well, no, yeah.
I don't think
it would be, if they were to announce anything, it would be something that would be like attached to like a main event panel of some sort, you know? Because any of the information that they would actually be like show, like obviously they haven't started filming any of these movies. Everything's still in pre-production.
Or they could have announced, we're hiring so-and-so to direct the first chapter of a new saga.
Yeah.
Now that the Game of Thrones guys are out of the way, they could have done something like that.
Stuff like that, like casting. Maybe they'll announce like some sort of like time frame of when the new movies will come out.
And again, even if they were to announce that could go out the window so fast, because look at what ended up happening to this trilogy. Directors changed hands, people got fired, people got rehired, people were brought back, people were taken out. The thing is
a lot of these
people quit.
a lot of those like announcements, a lot of them were never like 100% official still. But from Lucasfilm never. I think Lucasfilm advertised the Game of Thrones people were on, like they made that 100% confirmed, but like I think even the Rian Johnson stuff was like not 100% confirmed by Lucasfilm, but it was by Rian Johnson, but it was like a weird
but obviously they did fire the director of Solo. They did.
Well, they didn't fire the Game of Thrones people. They just left on their own because they wanted to work on something else.
But there were official blunders along the way. The guy that was supposed to direct the last Rise of Skywalker, he was also left the project. The guy from Jurassic World. So there have been some big, repairs that they had to do to their plans publicly. Granted, obviously, any company like this would rather have these adjustments made behind the scenes so that when it's all said and done, it looks like everything was meant to be the way it was meant to be. But yeah, they had to publicly make changes because of the fact that when you do project so much forward, they tried to pull, again, they tried to pull in Avengers, and Avengers has a better track record, not a perfect track record, the Marvel Universe I'm talking about, of being able to project so far in advance and kind of stick to that plan. And I think that's what happened with Star Wars. They tried to project into the future, and then they couldn't keep up with it. It was too many hurdles on the way. But anyway, because of the fact that movies are not that solid right now, and we are obviously, it's no secret. It's part of their strategy, and they mentioned it, that they want to take a break from movies and go towards television with Disney+. The Mandalorian was a complete, absolute hit. Second season, I think they practically finished it already.
They finished shooting it.
Now they're doing post-production, I imagine.
Yeah. They finished filming that, I think in January, I think.
And it's supposed to be, I think, coming out in October.
Yeah, so they've been well into pre-production. I wouldn't be surprised if most of their VFX are already done. They just need to wait until October.
It's possible. And I don't know if there's any delays in their October target date for Mandalorian. I wouldn't be surprised if they push it to December or something like that. The post-production, I could have swore I saw some post-production pictures on Facebook. Some people were editing from home. Some of their editors were working from home and that sort of thing. Yeah. So they even in the post-production world, this whole COVID problem is affecting everything. People can no longer go to their normal job and be around the people that they are. They have to spread it out. But again, when it comes to editing, it's a pretty solo experience. You could have somebody via Skype or something right next to you, or in a room that's separated or something. You could safely edit. Let me put it that way. So I wouldn't be surprised if, that sort of thing happened. Now, San Diego Comic-Con and Celebration, but specifically San Diego Comic-Con, would have been an excellent opportunity to debut the trailer for the second season.
Well, I don't think so, because Star Wars doesn't do that much usually during San Diego Comic-Con.
A teaser. You tease in San Diego, and then you give a full trailer at Celebration.
Usually they just do only the books and the comics and the toys. Usually during that time they show some stuff. I mean, the last time they done anything major...
With Mandalorian, last time it was different because the show was premiering, so we did get multiple... Remember when they had that sizzle reel that was only available for the people that showed up?
But that was at Celebration, though.
But then they had another event take place where they showed more.
That was still at Celebration.
Not the same Celebration. Maybe it was...
No, it was the same Celebration.
No,
they never showed anything before that. They were still filming at that point.
I'm pretty sure they were... No, they might have still been filming, but... I remember seeing two versions. The first version was the one that everybody was...
it was from the same panel.
And then the second version was something that they premiered. Maybe they released it publicly, the second one. Obviously before the... with actual clip, good quality video.
It took them 2 months before that footage became the stuff that you would see.
The good quality stuff.
Yeah, it was but all the footage that was released came from Celebration.
I'm still convinced that if San Diego would have happened, we would have gotten something, even if it's a 30-second tease or something, because that's how merchandising and advertising works. You give people a little tiny bites and bigger bites. The closer we get to that event, you give them a bigger bite. So it could have been a tease in San Diego and a trailer in Celebration.
Yeah, the thing though with that is Star Wars, they always saved it for Celebration, but with the other times, the only times that I can think of where they actually showed something footage wise at Comic-Con was, the last time was Clone Wars for season 10, but that was because it was the 10th anniversary and it coincided around that time. So then they showed that very early teaser trailer with only like 2 shots in it for the new season. And then before that, they had a panel for episode 7 at Comic-Con. But that was because they were kickstarting the whole thing, so they had to do that stuff. But normally they don't show footage at Comic-Con, really.
Well, the other thing that they could definitely be talking about is the fact that I think they already started pre-production on the 3rd season. Yeah. And is the 3rd season the one that they were hinting that Ahsoka is going to show up, or the second season?
No, second season.
So, okay, so Ahsoka's already in the works.
Theoretically, if she definitely is, which is like all but 100% confirmed now, then she would have had to already film her scenes.
And it's a very small, this is Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
And I imagine it because of the nature of the show, I don't think she's a regular. I think she's probably a one episode.
It's probably like a one episode
cameo or small role or something like that.
Yeah.
But again, I have a feeling that for Celebration, The Mandalorian season 2 would have been the meat and potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been the biggest focused everything.
Yes.
And plus, under normal circumstances, it also would have been the merchandising, juggernaut. It would have been the Baby Yoda dolls that we were expecting, that are still coming, but are coming later.
Some of them were able to come out before everything hit, but
right. But I'm talking about the interactive one, the plush ones, all those bigger products.
The life-sized Gentle Giant thing, where it's like it's completely like. It's basically like 100% accurate to the puppet.
Yeah,
it's like
you can't.
ridiculous.
But it's ridiculous the amount of stuff that's
like
coming.
$300 and it's like life size, completely detailed.
Well, the other thing they could have talked about, or they could have promoted in some shape or form. Now, granted, with The Mandalorian, you would have had panels of the stars. You would have had Filoni. All of the directors would have been there. Even Tiki would have probably shown up one day.
Well, the thing
he's
is,
a big shot.
He's not. Apparently, he's not directing anything he's not a part of the new season.
Really?
Apparently.
Wow.
But it's because he was working on other stuff. So.
But yeah, that would have been something else. And I believe I read somewhere earlier that Carl Weathers was going to direct an episode.
Oh, yeah, I heard
so
about
he might
that,
have been in the mix for the second. But again, like I said, the panels, all the guests, that's what you would have seen. Panels with every guest, special effects, creators. Filoni would have been all over the place as usual.
Yeah, he's definitely directing at least one episode.
Favreau probably would have been the lead, main event guest, I imagine, for Celebration. Because he is now he's not in charge of everything, but he's got the hot show. So he's the hot creator, of the month, if you will. I think even bigger than people would want to hear from Kathleen Kennedy or just about, unless you can get Lucas, but Lucas is really so disconnected at this point.
Well, he's shown up for every celebration.
Right, but I'm saying nobody can really ask him anything because everything is like, well, it's not up to me anymore.
He visits the set once in a while.
Right, and it's kind of like a good luck. Good luck, guys. It keeps the brand alive. It makes a connection with the old fans, whether the old fans like it or not, whether they agree or not, it makes that connection. For all we know, it might even be on his contract. In order to sell the company, he also might have agreed for the next 10 years, I will make some kind of an appearance at when you're shooting blah blah blah. I'll just come and say hi. You guys take some pictures. It's good publicity. It wouldn't surprise me one iota if it's in the contract. It's nice to think that he is such a nice guy and he is kind of watching over the property he used to own, that he kind of likes to keep tabs on what they're doing, and he likes to wish people good luck and good feelings. But if all of a sudden I found out that it's in the contract, it wouldn't surprise
me. I feel
me.
like, at least for The Mandalorian, I feel like he's more excited for that because Dave Filoni's there.
Yeah, and like, for example, with Ron Howard, they have a connection. They were friends. Ron Howard did Willow for him, you know. So yeah, some directors you figure that he would do it no matter what.
Yeah,
but who knows?
But like the trilogy movies, I feel like he wasn't that excited.
So yeah, definitely The Mandalorian would have been the big draw, and the majority of the big time guests would have been Mandalorian related. The second series that they could have been pushing a lot, that we're getting little bits and pieces of information as we speak, is the Cassian Andor series, which latest and greatest news that we have right now is that Mon Mothma is going to show up because it's that time period. The actress, the same actress that played her on Rogue One, right?
Yeah, and in Revenge of the Sith in the deleted scenes, yeah.
Right. We also know that actor from Thor, Skarsgård?
Stellan Skarsgård.
He has a role in it. So, okay, they're bringing in some heavy duty, talented actors in the mix. And that the show apparently has a new showrunner that was kind of already sort of involved,
I think
now
he was a producer or something.
This is Gilroy,
Tony Gilroy,
who was involved with Rogue One.
Yeah, he did the reshoots for Rogue One.
So yeah, that's again that's so crazy interesting that they're creating this series, and I don't see Gareth Edwards' name anywhere near it. You figure if this guy has work,
I heard that they had issues with him, not like a feud or anything, but it was like the whole third act of the movie was a complete train wreck, apparently.
Well, that's one of these huge things that is going to haunt us for years until they finally release some behind the scenes books or somebody talks.
Yeah.
That the buzz that has gone around since that movie was put out was that, yes, the end of the movie was completely changed and a new person, Gilroy, was brought in, and he actually reshot some stuff.
Yeah, I'm confused also because apparently that whole Darth Vader thing was part of Gilroy's thing, and Gareth Edwards had a cameo in that scene too, so it was kind of weird.
And there is no, Gareth Edwards has not said a bad thing about anybody.
No,
obviously
he hasn't said a thing about anything because he could be dead for all we know. I don't know where he is. We have not seen him.
Yeah, this is a tough one,
and
and what makes it even tougher, at least for me, is the fact that I like the movie. I like how it turned out, and I've talked about this before. Normally, when somebody has to jump in and reshoot the third act or the final part of the movie, it's usually a really bad sign of what you have on you. But to me, it's great.
Yeah.
So it's like, did they get super lucky that they were able to fix a problem and the fix came out good? Or am I just delusional?
Yeah, it's like the only other movie that I can think of where that happened really was for World War Z, because apparently they were supposed to go to a whole different country for that last part, and they had to reshoot everything.
Well, World War Z is a bizarre movie when you think about it, because the book is a journal of what's happening in these different countries, of different people's point of views, and how, I think it's like a reporter or something is going country to country collecting all this information.
Yeah.
But that's not how the movie was structured. The movie was structured like a normal beginning to end story.
Yeah, and it worked. And apparently, though, they had this whole part where the last part was supposed to take place in Russia, and then they reshot everything, but they shot all of that stuff, and then they had to reshoot everything. I think it was they changed it so it was at the World Health Organization instead, and it worked. And I think they did a fantastic job with that movie.
With Rogue One, again, it's a mystery, and it just makes things more confusing by the fact that Gareth Edwards is not around and he's not working. And you figure if a guy is not working, the thing that he would be asked to participate and to show his face in the same manner that you take a Filoni and you throw him into Mandalorian because he's a known name, a successful person within Star Wars. Technically, Gareth Edwards is a successful person. He put out a good movie, a movie that didn't divide the whole franchise like these other movies.
Yeah.
But not a peep. He's not involved. So it's like, okay, well, we'll find out one day what the story is. But that is probably the second most active element of Star Wars that's happening, after Mandalorian. Now, after Cassian Andor series, you have Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is out there. We've heard something about them rewriting most of the scripts because they wanted to rearrange the order so it doesn't look so much like Mandalorian structure.
Yeah, they said they were trying to fix it up.
I think they wanted to make the episodes longer, so they're kind of like Sherlock, where you have a shorter season but longer episodes.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, so apparently, they were redoing that, but then they said, and now they said like January of next year is when they were going to start filming.
But again, that's according to the original schedule.
Yeah.
Or does the COVID-19 thing push everything?
This is still the original schedule, so we don't know if it's being pushed yet.
Everything. Yeah, that's the other thing to keep in mind, is that everything we're talking about here could potentially be delayed some more.
This isn't even like, I know we're talking about Star Wars, but like the Marvel
everything.
Disney Plus shows,
that's a whole other world.
They were still filming a lot of those stuff, and they've all been stopped to some degree.
Yeah, the
So we
Marvel
don't know
world
what's gonna happen.
is going through this too. Everything's being pushed. But anyway, today we're only dealing with Star Wars. Now, yet another show that kind of snuck up on us a couple of days or maybe a week ago or something. All of a sudden, there's another Star Wars series in the works that is going to be helmed by the producer or the showrunner of the Netflix show Russia Doll, which I've seen that show. I've seen it.
I haven't seen it.
It's a weird
heard about it.
Groundhog's Day-ish kind of show where events keep repeating themselves, and it's kind of, I guess you can consider it a fantasy series because it's not sci-fi, it's more fantasy. But anyway, I don't know what I know that this lady who's the showrunner is going to be in charge of it. We don't know what the theme is. Could this be a Knights of the Old Republic? Could this be something completely that we haven't heard of? Who knows? We have no clue.
I'm thinking, I mean, a lot of people are thinking that because they're casting Ahsoka in The Mandalorian, that they'll give her her own show, and that could be that show. Because it's supposed to be, all the reports are saying it's supposed to be a female-led show, as in the main character is a female.
I just don't know if Ahsoka can carry an entire live-action show when we've already had so much Ahsoka material out there between Clone Wars and Rebels.
I think they could, because
and the books and everything.
Theoretically, supposing that this show would be branching off of her role in The Mandalorian, because it would be the oldest we've ever seen her to date, because it takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, which is also after the end of Rebels. So that could be the gateway to. This could be her working with Sabine to find Ezra, maybe, or unless they do an animated show on that still, or this could be just its own thing still.
Yeah, I mean, again, because we don't know, and we don't know for sure, it could be just about anything, so who knows. Now, Kyle just mentioned Rebels and stuff like that. Animation. Usually celebrations have some kind of animation information, whether it's an ongoing animated show or a new show. This would have been a perfect year to announce whatever they're working, because they have to be working on something.
Yeah, Resistance
animation
is
something that usually takes a long time to prepare. So odds are they're probably already working on something or two other somethings, because it takes so much time.
The fact that they ended Resistance already is like, supposedly it was always planned to be just those 2 seasons, really. So they already knew what they wanted to do next.
Right.
Obviously.
So that next thing should already be peaked.
And
we should have a preview.
Ever since the Disney purchase, they've had everything all planned out for animation-wise. Once Rebels ended, Resistance picked up right after that, and then.
And the thing I keep reminding everybody is that everybody should remember, before Star Wars got sold to Disney, Lucas already had an entire season of Detours, the kiddie, funny robot chicken group TV animated show that they made that got put on hold once the selling of the company happened. But they already had a whole season, I think, in the can. And that's sitting in some vault waiting to be shown somewhere. So even if they didn't have something, they could just pull that out and just, throw everybody a bone and let them have that for a year. Who cares? But animation, again, that this would have been a perfect opportunity for them to showcase some kind of an animated plan or give us a peek of what's next. Comics, I mean, hell, you just mentioned Knights of the Old Republic is where they seem to be possibly going first.
Well, they're going to the High Republic, which is because Knights of the Old Republic and the Legacy canon is supposed to be 1,000 years before. Mm-hmm. This is 400 years before, so it's still different. But yeah, that's what they're trying to promote right now, mostly. But I'm sure they're going to announce other spin-off comics and stuff like that. And
in a convention, you usually get comic book panels, book panels. I'm sure there's about 100 books in the works right now.
They're still working on a new Thrawn trilogy.
More Thrawn stuff. Yeah, more Thrawn. I'm sure they're going to start going crazy with Mandalorian-centric books. Oh, yeah, that would be That's going to be nuts at some point. I'm sure they're writing the crap out of those. Video games are still very hot during these conventions. Yeah. During the last one, they had the new game that came out.
Yeah, the Jedi Fallen Order.
That apparently was a big deal.
They're working on a sequel for that, apparently. And then they're also working on some other game, but we don't know what they are really. So,
toy-wise, again, that's a whole other show to make. But yeah, Mandalorian, heavy on Mandalorian toys. I know that the vintage collection is still kind of chugging along, and they're still releasing vintage card backs on figures that are, modern looking figures, and people are still, some people are still collecting those, and they're still waiting for certain ones that have not been made yet. The 6-inch line keeps growing incredibly into areas that I never thought they would. The Emperor's Throne, the Probe Droid, you had Jabba, large size stuff now that is in, size ratio with these 6-inch figures, which is very dangerous when you think about it, because these things have to be gigantic, if you want to make them in proportion. Like, can you make an X-Wing? I mean, that thing is going to be huge if you make an X-Wing. I could have swore I saw something.
Where are we talking about for the 6-inch?
For the 6-inch.
They made, for vehicles,
they made a TIE Fighter,
they made a TIE Fighter. They made the
I thought there was a snow speeder that they were thinking of making.
I'm not sure, actually, if they made a snow speeder.
But again, that's the problem they're going to start having, is the bigger they go, the more unaffordable and limited it will be. Because
if they made a Falcon, it would have to be the size of this room almost.
No, you're right. It has to be like, a Falcon has to be like, what, 5 feet long? Is some ridiculous size?
I mean, it's already, even with the 3 3/4 inches, the vehicles are out of proportion, obviously. But like, even if you look at like the AT-AT,
make an AT-AT.
You can fit like 5 figures in the AT-AT.
You make an AT-AT the size of a car. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. But they are trying. I mean, that's the thing. They're trying to find smaller items that are not ridiculous. But yeah, they're out there. Those larger items, they got to go for the smaller vehicles, because it's just insane.
They could do a Jedi Interceptor if they did something. They could do an A-Wing.
Well, speaking of that, because we had talked about this before, sooner or later they are going to have to put out the Mandalorian TIE Fighter with the folding wings.
Well, I think they already are for 3 3/4 inch.
You've seen it?
I've seen pictures.
Maybe. Let
me look it up.
But here's the thing: if they can do that for 3 3/4, they can do that for 6-inch, because they already put out a 6-inch TIE Fighter. So it's a slippery slope once you start making these things. So now, the other area that I would like to go talk a little bit about when it comes to convention news is theme parks. Everything that has been planned has been released in theme parks, especially Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. The first Millennium Falcon ride, the Smuggler's Run or something, that came out last year. And then earlier this year, they put out the Rise of the Resistance. Actually, wasn't that around Christmas time? Wasn't that in December? The Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah, for us it was December, yeah.
Right. And they also upgraded the Star Tours so that it reflects Rise of Skywalker. So, as far as we know, the Galaxy's Edge plan is fully in effect right now. But I always keep talking to Kyle about is that Disney usually likes to keep something changing, something that gets updated, something that for people that go multiple times, that they will have something new to look forward to without having to wait 5 or 10 years for a major change to happen. So I keep thinking that at some point they're going to have to designate an area of Galaxy's Edge, or maybe something nearby there, because we were talking maybe Launch Bay, where you can have an ongoing changing area, so that, for example, Mandalorian related attractions could come in and out, and as new series start popping up, the Cassian series, the Obi-Wan series, that kind of stuff could be cycled in and out.
I just realized one thing they could do is, they could update the Smuggler's Run ride and just have a different footage playing, like when you're flying the Falcon, and have different audio lines for the animatronics. And you could have like they could have a Mandalorian themed one or something,
That's very hard.
Like how they do at Star Tours.
Yeah, but see, that's very hard, because the entire ride centers around being on the Falcon. So
yeah, no,
you're still on the Falcon.
It's just a different.
You're saying you visit a different location,
different planet, or different mission, different. Like, instead of going up to these cargo things here, you're doing some other cargo.
But yes, but you also have to program the entire ride with the buttons you press. Remember, this is you're not just watching a movie.
Star Tours does it too with the
Star
motions.
Tours, Star Tours, you're watching a movie. There is no interactivity.
Yeah, they have to change the program of the way that the ship moves.
No. But the audience don't participate. Smuggler's Run, you are pressing buttons and you're shooting things.
Yeah.
So everything depends on your participation and your achievement or lack of achievement.
Yeah, they could still
I think it's I think it's easier to do what you're saying in Star Tours. Because in Star Tours, you change the movie and you change the programming of the motion.
It is easier.
But with the Smuggler's Run, you're changing the movie, you're changing the motion, you're changing the interactivity.
Yeah, but it's all digital. It's not like they don't have to like deconstruct anything physically. They don't have to change anything physically that much.
That would be great. I don't see them doing that. And because of, like I said, because of it has to be an ongoing changing thing, you know, I don't think they like to take the time or spend the money into doing something that extensive. I would imagine, I'm thinking more of, let's say, an area of the park that is not used very often, or maybe an area of the park of that attraction that, let's say, they have it on reserve. It's a little cubbyhole here, or this little, you know, there's a little corner where all those droids or all those slant speeders, where they could turn that into an ongoing something new. Or we talked about Launch Bay. They could potentially move some of that Launch Bay stuff somewhere else, take over the Muppet area, push more of the Launch Bay stuff to the Muppet area.
If they erased the Muppet area, that would be the best thing ever.
And then Launch Bay, for example, becomes the Book of the Club month kind of thing, where every season or every new show, they redo that whole area to reflect that show and have some kind of a presentation. Whether it's a floor show, whether it's a movie, I don't think they would put a ride, because a ride is too expensive to have a ride that comes in and comes out, but something that reflects that. Kind of like, remember when they had which I think they're in the process of stopping, the Galactic Spectacle, whatever that was called, where they do the characters come out. Something like that to reflect modern stuff, new stuff. That I wouldn't be surprised if they were to do that, if they were to take a section and make it a revolving door of new stuff.
Yeah, that would be something they could do. I still think it's completely feasible for them to redo the Falcon ride mechanics.
Well, like you said, the Muppets, they could take those Muppets and bring them to the kiddie side of Launch Bay, because Launch Bay is full of kiddie stuff on the other side. Bring all the Star Wars stuff, move it over to the Muppet area, redo that whole area so that it can have that rotating feel and handle the Launch Bay, you know, the photo op section, the store, the little movie they have on the side, the little museum-ish display area. They could reincorporate that, because if you think of Launch Bay, it's really a building. It's a hidden building. There is no massive structure that is part of the design.
The thing is with the Muppet area, though, they would have to build a new building, really, because the one that they have there, it's just a gift shop. And so they would have to construct a whole new, that whole area would have to get
they would have to redo that and attach it to Galaxy's Edge. The other thing is
I don't think they'll, the only reason I don't think they'll do it is because they just built Rizzo's like only a couple years ago.
I still think, and yet another reason why,
even though half the time it's only open during certain capacities.
Only seasonally open.
Yeah, so
but
it's
here's what I'm thinking, and this is something I thought they were going to do at first with Galaxy's Edge, is food-wise, Galaxy's Edge does not have a high-end restaurant. It doesn't have a nice sit-down table service restaurant, a theme restaurant. So that would be perfect. You take Rizzo's and you convert, let's say, the top floor to a nice sit-down restaurant, and the bottom floor could be another fast food
Another
place.
thing they could do also is with Star Tours too, they could redo the outside and make it more like as if it was on Batuu or something.
Yeah. Again, I mean,
they could.
We're never satisfied. Star Wars fans are never satisfied. We always want more, and we always have about 1,000 ideas. Now, speaking of 1,000 ideas, if they, which they most likely will, who knows? Maybe we're wrong. Maybe by the end of, it just seems so impossible that they will be ready by the end of August to go full tilt, 100,000 people in one room kind of. Yeah, because California will not do that.
Like, let's say, assuming that this stuff goes away for the most, let's assume it goes away completely, 100%.
Which is not going to happen.
They won't have enough, which won't happen. I don't think they'll have enough prep time to be ready for that. Like, because some people will still be worried and stuff.
These things, they're planning for at least a year.
Like a month's worth of prep time gone is like...
Contracts are being signed. Yeah. Merchandise is being manufactured as we speak, or it's already in a warehouse somewhere waiting to be brought in.
They probably stopped already, honestly, making stuff.
But that's my point, is that I don't think they can pull it off. But anyway, the point is that because it seems very likely that this isn't going to happen, And because we already know that San Diego is starting to offer refunds or roll people's tickets over to next year. Apparently you can do that. You can roll your ticket into next year. Celebration is a little more difficult because Celebration is always in a different location. So you can't just tell people, oh, don't worry, we'll give you tickets for next year. Well, what if next year the tickets are in Florida? The event is in Florida or Chicago, or what if they do it in Hawaii? What if they go back to Europe? Who knows? And I can guarantee you this, whatever they were going to go next year, that contract has been signed already. They might have 1 or 2 or 3 years already booked in advance. And you can't just tell everybody, okay, next year we were going to go to Denver. Nah, tell Denver we're canceling that contract. You can't do that. So the turn, the Anaheim turn to have a celebration, I think it's gone until maybe another 4, 5, 6 years later. So whoever is supposed to have Celebration next year or the following year, that might already be locked in.
Oh, yeah.
So if this is a wash, if this is completely wasted, what I'm thinking is, and again, I have no pull, I have nothing. We're just kind of spinning our heads and just throwing ideas out there. Depending on how much money they're going to lose. So for example, obviously, hotels are dead. All those hotel reservations people made are either going to have to go back to those people, or those people are going to sue every single hotel for refunds. So forget the hotel reservations. All the food, all the vendors, the location, the actual convention center, that money is either going to be lost or they have to come up with some kind of an agreement on what to do about that money. But all the merchandise that they've already pre-made, I'm talking about the exclusive merchandise, the convention related merchandise. That stuff, like I told Kyle, is sitting in a warehouse right now. Unless they were able to stop production, but I don't know when they would have stopped production. I don't know, because of the fact that they haven't officially canceled it, then you can't stop production unless you have an official cancellation. So there is a good chance that there is tons and tons of merchandise that says 2020 on it. It's not like the type of thing you can just grab and throw it into the next convention. Anything with a date is gone. You could take like a generic Admiral Akbar plushie, for example, and say, all right, we'll save that for the next convention. Yeah. You might be able to recycle some of the merchandise. But you got to remember, a lot of this merchandise, it's exclusively made for that theme. So it has a location theme, California theme. They do that on purpose. So maybe 50% of the merchandise could be recycled. Maybe, who knows? But anyway, the merchandise is there. You already sold and practically sold out the tickets. You probably, I imagine, usually celebrations, how many people they bring in? 90,000 now?
Something
close
like
to 100?
Yeah,
it's an outrageous amount of people. Those people are going to be refunded that money because you can't just tell them, oh, don't worry, we'll roll it into the next one, because a majority of those people might not be able to travel to New York, Washington, London. No, it all depends on what the next location is and whether or not it's convenient for you to go there. So I have a feeling they're going to have to refund all that money. So what's left now? What can they do at this point? Can they just kind of take the hit and call it a loss, or can they turn it into something else where they can still make a little money and give the fans something in return? That all depends on Disney, I think, because if it's a private small company, it might be easier to just take the loss. But Disney, because it's a bigger company and they're thinking long term, they're thinking, the next 50 years of merchandising, really, and entertainment and being able to sell to people. What I think they should do, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, is why don't they create a virtual convention? So granted, you don't get the experience that you get when you are physically there in the location. Of course not. It's never going to be like that. But for those of us, and even the people that do go to the convention, those of us who don't make it because the location is usually too far away, I love watching the online stuff that they put on. I think Verizon is the sponsor sometimes.
Yeah.
And you watch it on YouTube, and you watch an entire day's worth of stuff. You don't get to see everything, but you get to see some panels, some specials, some announcements, some little interviews that normally you won't see.
Even some clips too.
Yeah. You get again. You don't get everything. So in this particular case, because most of the people, I would say probably 90 to 100% of the people are going to get a refund for their ticket, why don't they do something online? Why don't they do something where For example, all of their guests that they had hired, let them keep their fee. Don't cheap out, don't cancel Mark Hamill's fee and Favreau's fee, whatever. Anybody who gets paid to be a guest, a speaker, a presenter, anything like that, let them keep their fee and give them this option. The option is you come to California, for example, and you do in a studio that's controlled, just a host and a guest. Do a one-on-one interview, obviously separate them enough for safety reasons. Or have them do an online interview, like a Zoom interview or a Skype interview, something of nice quality, where you have the equivalent of a 1-hour panel where the guest is answering questions from the host. And then you televise that, you stream that, you put that on YouTube so that you give the fans, let's say, a week's worth of entertainment, kind of like if you had that sort of thing. So you think about big panel guests, all the Star Wars stars, the Mandalorian, all those people. They could do it in a studio one-on-one, or they could do it via Skype, via Zoom, via something like that. Other type of panels, when I go to these conventions, they're so insanely huge that I can almost never make it into a big panel. But I do end up making the smaller panels sometimes. Those smaller panels could be done from home. These people that are bringing all their merchandise and all their presentations, they could do a presentation from home from a computer. They could do that. It's possible. So I think the entertainment part of it is there. You can have the StarWars.com hosts, the ones that usually do it. Yeah, all those chipper happy guy people that they're always, super Star Wars fans and that kind. They can be in a studio introducing all this stuff. They could be hosting it and then throwing to the kind of like all these news networks now. The majority of their stars, they're doing it from home. So they could continue this from home kind of thing for a convention.
Yeah, I think that they might actually there's a chance that they might have to do it that way, as opposed to not doing it at all because of let's say if they're still sponsored with Verizon, they might be contractually obligated to have a online stream, and if it's possible to do it, they're going to have to do it.
Right, exactly. Now, think about the other aspect of a celebration that is one of my favorite. What is the dealer floor? Granted, you cannot replicate the dealer floor. You cannot replicate 1,000 vendors. However, based on the vendors you had already booked, give them all back their money. Give them back their money, but figure out a way that you can tell people that, let's say, for example, on eBay, we're going to create a celebration store. And depending on what page of that store you go to, you get to go to that vendor's eBay store so that you can have a sort of an eBay a marketplace where people can go to some of those vendors, including a section where they could actually sell the official merchandise, this official convention merchandise that I was talking about earlier that is probably sitting in a warehouse right now, a place where you could do that. So I think it could be done. Granted, again, the dealer room will probably suffer the most. Now, granted, these dealers, they spend a ton of money to travel to California, for example, bring their merchandise, get a hotel room, and then they have to sell so much. From what I understand, they have to sell so much merchandise to recoup the money that they spend to get there. Do it in a way where you can tell people where to go to and get that merchandise that they would be selling, whether it's an eBay type of store or selling them directly to a website that the vendor might have. A vendor might say, you know what, I'd rather show them my store, my website than my eBay store, because the eBay store is just a bunch of pictures. But eBay is better usually at being able to look at an item and then just purchase right on the spot. So anyway, again, we're just spitballing ideas here. That will never give you back the experience of meeting people and talking to your friends, in person, being able to shake hands with forget shaking hands. That's never going to happen again at a convention. That's gone out the window. But those kind of personal experiences are not going to happen this year or possibly in the future, in some shape or form. But at least you can get the entertainment value of the convention. You can get that multi-day feel of information, famous people, behind the scenes, panels. I love those panels, those collector panels that are very low-tech panels. My God, You're talking about a guy with a slide projector, a PowerPoint presentation. That is the simplest thing to do online, is put together a PowerPoint presentation of people who collect Hammerhead action figures or something, some ridiculous thing, or whatever you're into, pins, buttons, patches, whatever you happen to be into. Those type of panels are so easily replicated to be put online from home. They're so simple. They're ridiculously simple. I've been recently watching a tour that Gus Lopez has been doing of his home and his collectibles. And right there, I forget if there was 10 or 15 episodes he put out. That there alone could be an ongoing panel for Celebration, and the content is already there. So it is possible to give the fans something substantial and something of quality if they kind of put their minds together and figure out money-wise what could be afforded and what can't. I mean, I would definitely watch it. I would even go as far as this. I would even go as far as to say I would be willing to pay a very low price to have access to, let's say, 7 days of that. You know, I'm not talking about the $100+ a day ticket that it costs you to go to Celebration, but I don't know, for $20 maybe, I would pay $20 to watch a 7-day, information presentation, from Celebration.
Yeah.
And same thing with all these people that are going to be refunded their money. You could say to them, we'll refund you 90% of your ticket. This way, the rest of that 10% goes to funding this virtual convention.
And the thing is also, they won't need to have a capacity, so they could have everybody.
Oh my God! Yeah,
they might even be able to make more money.
They won't make more money, but they could get more people. They could get more eyes than ever before because of the fact that it's unlimited.
Yeah,
and especially when you put it on YouTube, where you don't have to watch it live, you can watch it when you feel like it. There's some ideas here that could really benefit and make up for the fact of everything that's going to be lost by not having these conventions. I'm not saying this is going to be the way it should be forever. I hope that we get to a point where we could go back to conventions. Again, I don't think the handshaking is going to be coming back for a while. Photo ops, all that kind of one-on-one experiences, I think they're going to kind of put the kibosh on that for a while. But in the meantime, this is a perfect idea, I think, for to get us through this more difficult period.
Yeah,
let's do it. Well, hopefully they'll announce something soon because, and I'm honestly surprised that San Diego hasn't thought of something like that, because San Diego usually doesn't broadcast as actively as Celebration.
Hardly. I've not.
San Diego's not into that. I mean, the people will be filming.
I think there's
stuff.
Specific panels where they'll do it, but that's it.
Right, and for news events, for news outlets, they'll record certain things, but it's not like a full 4 or 5 day thing like they do with Celebration, where you can just sit in front of your computer for days at a time, just consuming information. But yeah, unfortunately, I have a feeling if something like that were to happen, Celebration would have to be the guinea pig. They would have to be the first ones doing it. All right. Well, anyway, again, this is just our ideas, which there's a good chance, probably a bigger chance that none of this will happen. But hey, we're Star Wars fans. We like to theorize on things. When we're not theorizing about plot holes and problems with stories in the movies or the TV shows, we're trying to come up with things that could be done to make the fan experience a little better. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. We covered as much as we could of the situation with, these conventions that are not happening and the potential of Celebration this year not happening also. And we looked at some alternatives. There's plenty of alternatives out there if somebody's willing to try them. They did a little mini online thing, I believe on May the 4th, to go along with May the 4th be with you. May the 4th date, Star Wars Day. But I don't think it was anywhere as big as what I'm talking about. It was a very small sample size of it. And I thought Reed Pop might have been involved a little tiny bit in it. So maybe that was the trial balloon to see how people would react to having something bigger. But that was interesting. The other bit of news that kind of broke while I was editing this is that Taika Waititi, one of my favorite names to pronounce, name was announced or through a news story. I don't know if it was official, fireworks coming out of Lucasfilm, but in the news sources, he apparently is being selected, considered, chosen to be one of these next Star Wars film directors. So that will be an interesting story to follow. Let's see if we can get all the way to completion, because you know what happens. Sometimes they announce these directors and then stuff happens along the way. It's an interesting pick as far as I'm concerned, because he does have a comedic, background. Even his Mandalorian episode had a very, comedic scene in it that I don't know if that's the type of thing that would work for a full-fledged movie, especially a Star Wars movie, considering the fact that I remember when the Solo guys, the Miller brothers, when they were let go from the Solo film, I could have swore I heard some rumblings of them going a little too comedic, too improvisational, too comedic, that kind of thing. And that's when they brought in Ron Howard. So, hey, it's another name out there. I love this director. I'm rooting for him. I hope he can make it work. We will see. So, on behalf of everybody here at GeekFest Rants, thank you for listening. Thank you to Kyle for joining me today. And hopefully this convention will still happen in some shape or form, but mostly in a safe manner. So we will see you here soon at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
This man is going to help protect us from the bad ones.
I have never met a Mandalorian. I've only read the stories. If they are true,
I'm in.
The Mandalorian original series streaming November 12th on Disney+.
If you would like to subscribe to our show, send us messages, or see video links to some of the topics we talked about today, please visit our homepage at geekfestrants.com or our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or iTunes at GeekFest Rants.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
GeekFest Rants is produced by Carlos Perone, copyright 2020.
This broadcast is part of the IC Robots Radio Network. Visit icrobots.com for this and many other nerd/nostalgia related podcasts. You won't be sorry for long.